My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from the voodoo. To arms!
You have led the horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got it over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
We're already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guests.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to show number 82 of Whispers of War. I'm your host Sil and let's jump into how was my week in Warcraft. First off, I want to congratulate my guild, a bit like Talia Fix, for getting ahead of the curve. It's time to carry my ass now, guys, so now that you have this all under your belt and you are absolutely fabulous, I'm sure you can also take a scrub rogue with you. So, yeah, no, in all seriousness, really well done. I'm sure that they're very happy with that progress and their lovely mounts. And, yeah, like I said, time to carry me now. Other than that, I've actually been really busy. I leveled, of course. But I did something else. So, as a guild, we are working now on getting that extra tab with the Stay Classy achievement. So I actually moved one of my alts over. I was planning on doing that anyway. Moved my alt over from, I would call it the dead server, to my current server. Placed it in the guild. Equipped that special, like, it's the tabard, the guild tabard, but the one that will give you even, like, more reputation. I think it's an epic version or something like that. I can't remember. And then I thought, you know what, let's just start and go into the area to update my gear with Benfix. So I went to Najatar, did that whole intro storyline bit there. Started a little bit for the dragon skill that you need to get, and then I think 1 or 2 quests to start the cloak from Raffian, and I was honored immediately, so that was one ticked off again. Yeah, it goes really quick now. I know that the buff does not help for guild reputation, but just do that quest line and you get all honored. So that was really easy on that character. We're still working towards it. We have a nice little schedule and planner of who does what, so hopefully we will get that extra bank tab. I know that a lot of other guilds out there have done this ages ago, but because we're relatively new, we didn't have that tab, and it would help a lot. We've noticed. But other than that, it's just been a lot of fun. So we had a little bit of a event, something like a competition. It was all about Easter, and I created a few one-liners or themes for Easter. So one was flower power, the other one was it must be bunnies. Kudos if you get that reference. And yeah, people were posting their transmog screenshots and used the environment, and it was really difficult picking some winners, but I managed to do it. Don't hate me if you didn't win, you were all really great. So that was a lot of fun. I still need to contact the winners in-game, because as much as I have been in-game, I have not been really social, which I apologize for to all my friends, but I've just been busy sorting things out. So I actually created 2 bank alts. Now, with someone who has so many alts, why not use one of my regular alts? I didn't want to. I wanted to really create 2 bank alts and just be done with it. So one is on the Horde side, one is on the Alliance side. And I just send all the crap that I had in my banks to these 2 characters. I also have one character, which is on the Alliance side, that will take all the Benfic gear. Just so I have an overview of what is there and what I can send off to my alts who are leveling. And I made, surprisingly, a lot of chunk of money. I was really surprised with that, because I'm the kind of person that, okay, new expansion is coming up, I will clean out my bags and my bank if I have to, and then I'll just bring it to the vendor if I don't do anything with it. Won't put it on the auction house, don't care. But with the changes to the auction house, it's actually become really easy, and okay, I'm not that kind of person that will still play the market or really look at things and go, okay, yeah, if I undercut that, no, I don't care, I'll just chuck it on there and, you know, put it on 48 hours and be done with it. But that actually helped a lot. And yeah, so I said I made quite a nice amount of money. I still have some stuff that I need to go through, but I think it's a bit easier just having 2 alts to deal with that. So that was that, and god, did I amass a lot of shit in those 15 years. And I see now I also have the tendency to go like, okay, well, this is my main, I will clear her bank out by sending it to another alt. Yeah, that didn't work in the end, because I was really like almost scared of opening certain banks. It was also, I found some things that I went like, oh, this is a toy now, which I can, you know, put in the toy achievement or the tab. Yeah, that was interesting, and a lot of shit that I just should be chucking out because it has no value anymore, and I just, you know, it's already in your transmog look or anything like that. So I did a bit of reorganization stuff, and then I decided, well, I have all this Bentic gear. Why not level their eye level a little bit? Because, and this is a bit of stupid thinking, but you know, it's me. I thought, I still don't know what I really want to play as my main in Shadowlands. So why should I make it so difficult for myself and make sure that all my characters are kitted out with at least a certain threshold of eye level, so that I don't get pummeled as soon as I set 2 steps into Shadowland by a butterfly. And yeah, that led me on the path of unlocking Najitar with all my alts, going for that quest line of the neck to get it to at least, I think it's eye level 50, is it rank 50 or something like that? So I've done that thing with the stone elemental and the, what's his name, Eben something. I've run that now like 20 times with that guy, and I still don't really know his name. The hidden, like the hidden dragon inside of a Tauren body. That one in. I know I'm really saying it in like a really crap way, but that's the one that I mean. I'm sure that it's an Ebonheart, something like that. So I've done all of that. All my alts now that I needed to gear up, and the next thing is the cloak. Now we all know that the cloak will take at least 4 hours of my life with like 40 characters, so I'll be busy. I'll be very busy, but you know what, it gives you a good chunk of money. At least my characters are up there now. I get Benfic gear as well, because when you get that quest from either Jaina or Lorfamar to upgrade your Benfic gear to like a level up, I don't do that. I take those pearls and I just grab some gear from the vendor, and that's what I mail to my alts, or my bank alt in this case. And then I just kit everyone out. And it helps. It helps a lot, because it's very painful when you go into Najitar and you're wearing just the heirloom still. So this is not costing me a lot of money. I have not upgraded my rings or my trinkets yet. I'm waiting for world quests for that. But so far, I'm doing alright. And some of the classes I've been playing now actually do pack a punch, and I'm impressed with how some of them play. So a part of me feels like this is the ideal time to find a main. I will be maining Alliance side because I want to stick with my guild. But I'm not gonna lie, I find my Horde characters far more interesting than my Alliance characters. And that's probably because of the races, because, you know, your girl still loves trolls. So, yeah, I'm very heartbroken that we don't have trolls on the Alliance side. That would be perfect for me. Well, unfortunately, it's not to be. For now, maybe. So, yeah, I've been doing that a lot. So, gearing all the alts, getting rid of my shit, Transferred a few characters. I only have a few left now on the old server, so hopefully by the time that Shadowlands hits, all my characters will be on one server now. Because I just, I play on this server. This is where the most RP is. I'm happiest here. And like I said, I still don't know what to main in Shadowlands. I'm inching more and more towards a hybrid class, and not that I'm such an amazing healer or tank, far from it, but I used to heal a lot in the past and I was not a shit healer. So it might be an idea to at least have that option, instead of just pure DPS, because like I said, the one thing that really disappointed me with the rogue is, one, I'm a scrub rogue, and two, subtlety just does, that's the spec I love, but it just doesn't perform well, and it doesn't seem to be any better at the moment in alpha for Shadowlands. So I'm a little bit heartbroken about that. So I don't know if it's just time to switch, which is difficult for me because I've grown quite attached to this character. I do like the new shaman I'm leveling. However, she is an iron dwarf, and don't hate me, dwarf lovers, because I know that there's a big group out there who absolutely adore them. I think she looks pretty cool, but if I have to pick on the alliance side, I would still go for Draenei, and I don't fancy leveling a Draenei shaman again. I'm already leveling so much. And no doubt we'll be getting more allied races, maybe not in this expansion, but in the next one. I cannot afford a second account just to get everything. So, yeah, I'm just not... I'm not feeling it, guys. I'm really not feeling what I need to play. So I'm hoping maybe in the next couple of months I'll figure it out. Who knows? Maybe Rogue will be amazing again, and that will make it so much easier. So that's me. And my brain farts at the moment. Yeah, really having a good time in the game, but I just wish I knew what I wanted to play a lot. And that's really it. So if you want to be part of the shenanigans, by the way, of my lovely guild, then make sure that you apply to a bit like Taliefix on Art and Dawn EU, Alliance side, of course. And other than that, yeah, that's been it. So let's cut to the chase. I'll leave you with an amazing interview, a very long interview that was fabulous. I talked to the lovely Nobbel, and it was nice talking to a fellow Dutchie again. I'll promise we don't talk much in Dutch, but there are some Dutch words that we fling at each other. That will be translated for you anyway. We're not that inconsiderate. So yeah. I will leave you with the interview, and then afterwards I'll come back to what you guys said on Twitter about your favorite lore character. So I will see you on the flip side. And with me today I'm being joined by probably a very familiar voice, at least I hope so. I hope the R's might give it away. Welcome, Nobbel.
Hello everyone. Sorry, should I do the R's a little bit harder?
Like I said to you before, I think everyone is like, oh my god, as soon as I heard that.
You missed one hell of a pre-show, everybody. It was fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And I never do it live so people can hear me stumble through everything and making a complete idiot out of myself. But
many apologies beforehand. It was fantastic. It's like, yeah, the show hasn't even begun yet, but let me just apologize in advance. Okay.
I know, but that's again, like you said, I've just turned British. It's horrible. I need to go back to my Dutch roots and just be really, really blunt with my questions. And well, hopefully you will find my questions really blunt.
Let's hope so.
I hope so too. So let's start with the first one. For those who have lived under a rock in the WoW Warcraft community, who are you?
Okay, with such an introduction, like, who are you? And I'm like, hello, the Nobbel. Hoi. But for those that have never heard about me before, hi everybody, I'm Nobbel. I'm a big fan of the Warcraft lore, and I'm a big fan of making videos. And that passion has been combined into a little YouTube channel. And that's what most people know me about. The guy with the funny Dutch accent that tells the story behind Warcraft.
And you know, you've done a lot of lore videos. What was it that prompted you into doing those? That you thought, okay, you know, I love the lore, but I also want to put it out there on YouTube.
Ooh, that takes us back in time. It started with, and you gotta understand, I had no clue about Warcraft or the lore to begin with. It started actually with making videos. All the way back in the Burning Crusade, early days of YouTube, I made little guild event videos where, like, you know, you go naked to the Gurubashi arena and you start bashing each other's brains in. I was like, cool, let's share that with the guild. So I made videos. That then flowed into Wrath of the Lich King, where I kind of started to do guides of it. There was like this quest that a friend of mine couldn't do. And was like, well, it's real easy. Just jump on the back of a dragon, and this is what you do. That flowed into making solo videos, as in, there was a time, like Wrath of the Lich King-ish, where I got really into soloing stuff, like the old Onyxia and eventually Ulduar and Karazhan, all that stuff. And I figured to myself, like, if I can solo this, me, the clicker, the new player, then anybody can do this. They might need some pointers, right? Like things that I came across that's like, if I'd known this beforehand. But at the end of the day, anybody should be able to do this. Mm-hmm. So I started making these solo videos. And it was also Wrath of the Lich King where my love for the lore started to spark. Because there was this beautiful cinematic. I must have used it 1,000 times in my videos. The Wrath Gate cinematic. With Bolvar walking up to the gate and Arthas and the plague, and it was just, there was a spark there where I was like, okay, I've been playing this game since Classic, what is going on here? So I started looking up these characters. I was looking up Bolvar and Varian and the Lich King, and all of a sudden I had like 50 to 80 tabs open with all kinds of lore information, and it was just absorbing it in. I was like, this is so cool. That moved into gaining additional information, like getting the books and the comics and really diving into it, playing Warcraft 3 for the first time. It just all these little nuggets that I've been picking up during Classic and the Burning Crusade, it all just kind of came together into this whole storyline. So at that point, that's where my love for the lore started. Wasn't making the lore videos quite yet. That takes us to the Cataclysm periods, where there were people like Total Biscuit and Jesse Cox who were making like these beta coverage videos. The day Deathwing came, and those videos were such an inspiration. Like the Game Channel, I think they were called back then. Mm-hmm. And I told myself that if I ever get the opportunity to test the beta, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test the beta. I'm going to conquer this domain. Everybody will love the videos. And what did you know? If Mr. Pandaria rolled around with a beautiful campaign attached, if you bought 6 months of game time or like pre-ordered, guaranteed beta access. And I was like, this is going to be my opportunity. I sign up, get beta access, I make my videos, and nobody watched them. I had like, hi guys, what do you want to see? And it was like this one person that was like, yo, can you show me how auto loot works and group loot? I was like, sure. Let me kill this group of mobs and just click on them. That's how it works. See ya. But there was a video out of the blue that just sparked for whatever reason, which was called Faramore Destroyed. It had this beautiful clickbait thumbnail with like Jaina tied up on a chair with like a gag in her mouth, and I don't even know where I found it, but it was there. And this was at the time where we didn't really know what was going to happen with the bombing of Faramore, so there was a lot of speculation, what was going on, and that video drew attention. And it's at that point that I realized, like, okay, cool. I like lore. Apparently people like lore. I like making videos. Let's go. So Mr. Pandaria rolled around, and that's really where I got into the whole covering of the lore videos. And I think 8 years later, here we are today.
Wow. And, you know, you are on Twitch as well, because I'm going to sound like such a creeper when I say I watch you now and again stream. I always find it sounds so creepy when people say that. But what do you prefer yourself? Making YouTube videos or interacting with a live audience on Twitch?
It's a bit of both. I really love the process of making a video. Even after so many years, I still love the process of coming up with a concept, making a script, going into editing, and just bringing that story to life. I love that part. But the whole dynamic on Twitch, like it's not comparable. On Twitch, you have a live audience in the chat room. And part of the reason why I started streaming, you know, before the whole, hey guys, look, I actually broadcasting what I'm doing right now. And I had like 3 friends of mine in the chat room, like, look, this is the music I'm listening to. Isn't this cool? That was like one of my first streams. But when I started actually streaming for the channel, it was with the idea of there's a lot of questions in the comments, and there's a lot of people reaching out to me like, Nobbel, what is this lore? What is that lore? What if I could just, you know, not just respond to comments on YouTube, but there's a live chat box there. And that's the idea behind my streaming. And it's a different dynamic. At the end of the day, I don't think I can make a choice between either one, to be honest. I love it when there's a chat room full of people and we're just hanging out and people are like, oh my god, look at this. And there's like a little butterfly flying by. I'm like, yeah, that butterfly is really important in the lore, isn't it? And it's just we're geeking out together, which is great. But then to also see response of the YouTube video where people are like, Nobbel, I love you, man. I've been listening to your videos while going to sleep for like 8 years. I hope it doesn't sound creepy. And I'm like, no, please take me to bed with you. I love it. It both has merits and it both has, real passion for it.
Okay, no, that's really good to hear. So let's jump into your World of Warcraft career. I can call it that. So what do people want to know? Are you Horde or Alliance?
Playable, I am Alliance. Story-wise, I'm leaning more towards the Horde.
Oh, can you explain why?
Okay, so this goes back to the very beginning. Hello, my name is Nobbel. I started playing a Classic. I think you should all know this. Classic. And back then, I had just finished up playing Star Wars Galaxies with a friend of mine over summer. And that game sucked us up, right? We were all summer long, we were playing that game. And he showed me this trailer of a game called World of Warcraft. And I was like, do I really want to dive into another MMORPG? You know, I just spent a whole summer. Do I want to spend another month in another game? I don't know. But when I saw that trailer, I was hooked. Like the dwarf on the mountain with the bear and the music and the night elf running around. I was like, wow, this looks so cool. So sure enough, we decided to play World of Warcraft. I had never played Warcraft 3, 1 or 2, not even... I think I might have played like StarCraft once at his house, at a friend's house, but that's about it what I was connected to Blizzard. But by the time that I got into the game, my buddy had already chosen to be human mage, so my faction was easily chosen. I had no clue with the difference between Alliance and Horde. If I had known about like shamans and Wind Fury Totem and the history of the Horde, it might have been a completely different choice, but no, he chose Alliance, so I went with him, not realizing that if you make a Night Elf, and he is a human, you're not going to be seeing each other for like the coming 20 levels, but, you know, nothing a little wetlands run can't fix. So that's how I rolled into the Alliance, and by that point, like, you're so familiar with the faction, you know all the leveling zones, you know the cities. Doesn't mean I haven't made alts, and doesn't mean I haven't checked the story on the other side, but just, you know, it kind of feels like comfortable, and it feels like I know the leveling routes, and it feels familiar. Whereas story-wise, like Thrall's origin story with the Horde, it's just so badass. It's one of my favorites. If I had known about how the Horde tried to rise up and carve out like a little piece of land in this world that's hostile to them, with the history of it all, I probably have gone Horde. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to presume that you are, as we like to call it, bifactional.
Yes, although I do play, like Battle for Azeroth was just not alt friendly, so I stuck to one character, which is Alliance, but I do play on both sides, yeah.
Okay, do you feel like you because I hear a lot of people say that, and luckily we've gotten the XP buff for a little bit, so I see a lot of people now, especially like from my guild, also say, yeah, I've leveled a Horde now. Do you feel like people are missing out if they don't play both sides by getting the whole picture of what's going on?
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, that goes all the way back to... biggest part would probably be Mr. Pandaria. Where you had like the different storylines with Garrosh and Varian and whatnot. And after that, like Legion, you had not so much faction things. Legion was more about the classes and their order halls, but even then, just a little bit with Sylvanas in like Stormheim and whatnot. And then Battle for Azeroth. There are like two different campaigns being told. I was on a podcast the other day or a live stream where the question was asked, like, what do you think about the Battle for Azeroth storyline? I'm like, Pride of Cult Heroes is probably one of the best storylines that they've done in game. And they're like, yeah, I didn't see that. I just played Horde. I'm like, well, guess you missed out, didn't you? So absolutely, if you're into lore and with an eye on the upcoming expansion, without going into spoilers, get your characters ready.
Yeah, no, I can't but agree with you, because I play both factions, as people know. Okay, that will be interesting, I think, for when Shadowlands finally comes out.
I just hope that they're going to make it more alt-friendly. Like, Battle for Azeroth was ridiculous.
I know. I really, really hope that is the case, because I've only been leveling now with the XP buff, but otherwise I'm like, nah, as soon as that ends, forget it. I'll just wait until everything gets cramped down into the leveling squash because I can't freaking deal with it anymore.
I really hope that they're going to expand it. Like, lockdown isn't over, Blizzard. I know that you just made a post about giving like reputation buffs, but you know, what about the experience buffs? Come on now.
Exactly. It's not going to like hurt them, I think, with anything. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, so we already know that you are maining Alliance, but what is your main?
Paladin. Since Wrath of the Lich King, yeah. Started off as a hunter, the most basic of all, but in Wrath of the Lich King rolled a Paladin and been maining that ever since.
Was that more because of a lore choice, or just that is just a class that appealed to you and that's what you rolled?
Not a lore choice, nor did I know that back in Wrath of the Lich King Paladins were going to be super OP. The reason why is because in Classic I started off with the Night Elf Hunter, and I chose the Night Elf Hunter because in the description I read that if you die as a Night Elf, you would get like a speed increase, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be dying a lot, that's a really OP ability to have, right? That's how he came into Night Elf with the Hunter because of that cinematic. I was like, if my enemy has to fight my pet before they can even touch me, because, you know, the whole bear fighting the Tarn and whatnot, I was like, that's OP, isn't it? Of course, it didn't work out that way, but, you know, that was still the idea. Then I took a little break between Classic and Burning Crusade. Eventually came back again to check out, like, the Draenei and the Shamans on the Alliance side. Took another break. And then Wrath of the Lich King rolled around. And there was another content creator called WoWHops, who was doing the WoWHops way of pulling, in which pretty much on his Paladin, he was pulling all dungeons, boosting people, getting gold. And I thought to myself, you know what? I've gotten bored with this game before. You know, I don't really do the whole raiding thing. I don't really have a lot endgame stuff to do. But if I start soloing, you know, then that can be my entertaining thing at the end of the road. And that's why I rolled into the Paladin.
Ah, and I presume that, have you always stuck with the Paladin per expansion? Or was it at a certain point like, okay, they've really, messed with my class right now in this expansion, I don't like it, I'm switching to something else, or have you always stuck with it?
I've always stuck with it, but with the side note that I haven't done any proper endgame content for a very long time. Like, sure enough, I've stepped into raids from time to time, but like a very casual manner. It wasn't until Battle for Azeroth where I actually picked up raiding again, surprisingly. And for Battle for Azeroth, I felt like the Paladin was fine. It was not, you know, top curve, we're not demon hunters. But okay, who else is? We were doing fine. You know, we're doing fine.
Okay. That's good to hear. So you said that you started playing at the beginning. But what was that moment for you that you just, you were in the game and you were like, oh my god, this is it now. I will never play anything else anymore. I am now super addicted.
I'll let you know, I actually hated this game at the start. I got the game and I opened it up. And you gotta imagine, right? You enter this Night Elf starting area. You don't have a pet. You have a stupid bow that you can shoot once and then you have to swing them with your staff. And I was like, this is really boring. So after like 20 minutes, I turned off the game and I went and did something else. But it was itching in the back of my mind. I was like, there has to be something to it. So I opened it up again the next day and I was playing for an hour and for 2 hours. And then when that buddy of mine eventually came to pick me up, and I'm pretty sure that I spent like a proper day in Darkshore just farming those crabs on the beach. Like there's this meme about the more RPG genre, we're just killing crabs all day. I'm pretty sure that was me. But he came to pick us up, and it was like a group of people, I'll never forget, it was a group of people. We were doing the wetlands run, so you had to run through wetlands, and crocodiles were coming out to kill you. And slowly but surely you would make your way to Ironforge and eventually Stormwind. And we get across those mountains, and you get into the Ironforge area. And all of a sudden you realize, like, whoa, this game has snow? What? And that's when it snapped, like, this world is so much bigger than just that silly starting area that I started in. And to know that there's just so much more. And then, of course, there are the friends you build up, like the guilds that you hang out with. All of a sudden, you see yourself till like 4 o'clock in the morning talking to people about whatever you want to talk about. And yeah, that's kind of how it dragged me in. It was a slow but surely process till I eventually got it in. That's not to say that I was ever any good at the game, especially now that we get a chance to relive it. And I'm like, what? How did I spend so much time getting to level 16 Classic? It's not that hard. But you know, you're a beginner. You're a little scrub that's running around. When I ask people like, how am I supposed to make my pet happy again? the bosses in trade chat, they were like, yeah, you need to target it and you need to type /pet, and that's how you make it happy again. And I'm pretty sure that I spent a good solid 5 minutes just typing /pet. It's not working. You need to try harder, /pet. It's not working. And then my spider left me.
Oh no! oh yeah, the wonderful days of the vanilla time frame. Talking about vanilla, when Classic was re-released, was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. I think it was last year, probably.
Probably.
Yeah, it feels really weird saying that. I still have that with the beginning of 2020. So when it was released, did you re-released really? Did you go back into it and were you like, oh yeah, this is it for me again, I love it? Or were you like, you know what, after 15 minutes I'm kind of done now?
Yeah. I was lucky enough, I believe I was lucky enough to actually test out WoW Classic. And I've been very open about this. Never, ever have I been like, I really want Classic to be re-released. But I also knew that there were a lot of people out there that really wanted it. But I knew for me that Classic can never come back. It was fantastic for its time. Might be surprising for people to hear, but the popularity of Classic WoW actually was because it was so accessible and easy compared to other MMORPGs. It was the gateway drug into MMORPGs. So to then test it and be like, yeah, you know, it's nice to hear those sound effects again between aspect of the hawk and aspect of the monkey. You know, it's tingling my Classic nostalgia feelings. That's nice. But at the same time, my, does it take forever to kill something? It's also slow, it's also this. And for a lot of people out there, that's exactly what they wanted. That's exactly the charm that has been lost with retail WoW. For me personally, that was never a thing. So then it was actually released, and I joined a community guild, and I pretty much set up the goal of getting Rokdelar, Longbow of the Ancients. In my mind, one of the best quest lines that they've ever done. I wanted to relive that moment. So that means you level your character, you pre-gear your character, you go into multi-core, you get the leaf, and you go do the quest line. I think it took me like 2 weeks to get it done, 3 weeks, something like that. I was like, okay,
wow.
Cool. This was, you know, fun, nostalgic. The quest line was actually as much fun as I remembered it to be. So that was great. You know, not rose-tinted. It was actually really great to go through it again. But then it was Christmas break, and I was like, you know what? I don't miss it. I don't miss re-clearing Onyxia or Molten Core. It's okay. I've relived it. It's still there for people that want it. But for me, time to move on.
Fair enough. And I think a lot of people have fought the same way. I just couldn't be bothered anymore with how hard it was to level. I thought, you know what? I don't have time anymore, like I did 15 years ago. Unfortunately.
Right. Growing up and whatnot is no fun.
I know. It's just, I don't like these adult responsibilities. I prefer it much more when I was, well, I guess I was adult back in the day as well, but it was just a bit like, you know, no mortgages and things, and work was not as, yeah. All those fun responsibilities. Right, talking about a much more interesting subject. Since I have the lore buff on, I figured we should have some lore-tinted questions. So my questions for you are, which lore story did you enjoy the most, and why did you enjoy them so much?
Yeah, I mentioned it at the start, like picking your favorites is so freaking hard. If we're looking at the more recent, like if we're looking at Battle for Azeroth, I think that the Pride of Kaltira storyline, which is pretty much like Jaina's wrap-up storyline, she confronts the things that she's done in the past, she's going back home, she's reconnecting with Mommy and whatnot. In my opinion, that is one of the better stories that they've done inside of the Warcraft, the entirety of Warcraft. But there are so many cool stories to pick from the Lich King and Medivh and Broxigar. There are so many cool storylines to go into that picking a favorite is really, really hard. Okay.
What makes a story good for you? What does it have to have a certain villain type, or is it like character development that's really important to you? What is it that would grab you?
In the case of Pride of Kaltira, what really surprised me is whenever I stream something and, you know, we're going through the story, and I've had comments about this, like, Nobbel, why you gotta be like that? You know, why you gotta behave like that? And I like taking the piss out of the story. I like sitting through the storyline, knowing what I know, and be like, you know, that's not what they would say. You know, Rexar wouldn't say that he wants to fight Jaina, and Rexar wouldn't serve Sylvanas to begin with. I like pointing those things out. That's fun to me. But in the case of the Pride of Galtiris, wouldn't you know it? Every time that I mentioned something like this could have been different, this could have been different, the game threw it back at me, actually acknowledging it and having that character flow through it. That is what blew my freaking mind. And I was like, there's actually a lot of love and attention and detail. Somebody who was aware with the massive arc that is Jaina's story was actually working on this. So I think part of it is that it needs to fit in the overall picture, right? Knowing what happened and actual realistic responses to it. Other than that, I very much like to be surprised. Like, what draws me into the Arthur storyline is that it's a story of conflict. It's not simply black and white, Arthur is the good guy, Uther is the bad guy. You know, there is inner turmoil in the character of Arthur as he goes through a journey with a lot of pressure. Things are still being debated about the Purge of Stratham. Was it the right choice? Was it the wrong choice? So many years later, people are still wondering, like, did Arthas do something wrong? And that can also be drawn to something like the Purge of Dalaran with Jaina and the Blood Elves. Who was in the wrong? Was it Jaina for reacting this way? Was it the Blood Elves to go along and steal the Divine Bell? Was it Garrosh to forcing them? I love it when stories open up such a huge bowl of, okay, let's try to figure out. And often you find yourself drawing it back to your own moral compass and say, like, if I was in such a situation, yada, yada, yada. So putting yourself in the shoes of the character helps a lot as well. And in the case of Broxigar, I know a lot of people I know that some people don't like the character Broxigar, but I just find him such a badass. Like an orc that just, you know, jumps through a portal and is like, hey, what up, Sagaris? Let me just strike you down real quick, or at least strike you. That's so cool. And I just can envision it in my mind, that like how that would look. That is so awesome. So it can be epic moments, it can be relatable moments, debatable moments. There's so many things that can bring a story together. Perhaps it's easier to say, like, what don't I like about a storyline? Unfinished, doesn't make sense. Like the way that we took care of N'Zoth, for example. Ew. Absolutely ew. There's such a massive potential there, and then it's just like, yeah, we lasered him to death. Good job, heroes. Azeroth's been cleansed. Like, what? Excuse me?
Yeah. Are you hoping that we'll get some more, maybe resolution? I don't know if that's the right word, but like a resolution to that unsatisfying ending, really, to N'Zoth in Shadowlands? Or do you think that chapter has been completely closed now?
I mean, I don't think it's completely closed. A lot of people are like, I really hope that what we saw with N'Zoth was just like a vision of N'Zoth, right? Like, not reality. But how shit of a story are you telling that people are actively wishing that is not true? Right? So that just says a whole lot. For me, when it comes to the N'Zoth storyline, and you could compare this to like Garrosh, they didn't like what happened with Garrosh. They wanted to give more player choice, so they were like, let's do a do-over, and that's how we ended up with Sylvanas in Battle for Azeroth. You made your bed and you gotta sleep in it. That doesn't mean that out of this shit pile you can't build up something beautiful again. Like, the story of the Old Gods, as well as the Void Lords, is not over yet. The domain of the Void Lords is still out there. So they can easily build up upon that. Maybe with, like, we were being tricked, and then, oh no, there's the Black Empire. But I feel like Battle for Azeroth would have been the perfect opportunity to actually start off with the Black Empire. Start off with the Old Gods breaking out, and then have the faction war as the side thing, rather than what we actually got. But that moment, you know, that ship has sailed, right? Let's go to new things. There's so many more creative things you can show off in the story of Warcraft. Let's go there.
Okay. Are there any other stories that you feel like, okay, this really didn't get enough love, or this was really not that amazing?
Ooh, Garrosh was disappointing. In the case of Garrosh, there was this different war chieftain, Thrall. You know, Thrall was all about, let's go for peace, la la la, hold hands. And Garrosh was like, nah, look, Taro Gar, baby, we are Horde, we take what we need. And I remember that they at some point said, like, the feedback for Garrosh was not that great. There were like 2 different teams working on the story of Garrosh. That is why there's such a disconnect. Because in one expansion, we see him condemn the bombing of an elven settlement. The next expansion, he does it himself with the bombing of Fedamore and goes even further beyond. And it's like, what happened to the Garrosh that we saw? And even back then, there was speculation, like, is there manipulation going on? Is he being corrupted? But no, this is Garrosh. This is the character that we want. And then okay, fine, you turn him into the bad guy. We need to kick him out of the mental report chief. It's all fine and dandy, but then they place him on trial, right? In the novel War Crimes, they placed him on trial, and there's like a glimmer of hope of trying to get to Garrosh, a glimmer of hope of seeing that old orc of old, and then they just release him out of jail. They use him to kick off the next expansion. And then you're like, okay, cool. So Fro is going to go to alternate Draenor. Maybe you could talk to Garrosh and be like, look, Garrosh, your way is way too warlike. My way is way too peaceful. Let's get together and see if we can make the Horde better. But nope, just gets killed off. There was no development between Garrosh at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar and the Garrosh that we saw in Warlords of Draenor. And I'm like, that is such an absolute waste. Why didn't you do more with him?
Yeah, I mean... If one thing you can say that the community is quite vocal when they don't like something. So it is certainly not the first time I've heard that at all. I think for me with that whole ending, like the whole, you set up that fight as the player and then Thrall just steals it.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, there have been, and it's not the first time either. Like in Dragon Soul, he steals.
I know, what's up with that? And then, people get like upset when players do it. I mean, lore characters tell you to do it, so... Okay, if you were... and that's actually also another question. If you were in charge of the lore, what would you like to see happen with it?
Oh, don't put me in charge of the lore. Oh, that would be a terrible mistake. Well, funny enough, one thing that I've actually really been hoping for, and this is something that Blizzard is actually going to do, is in the olden days, the early days of the lore, you could draw back like pretty much any story to 3 different pillars. There was the Old Gods, the Burning Legion, and the Titans. For example, the orcs invading Azeroth, that would be Kil'jaeden, Sargeras, the Burning Legion, right? Draw any source back to its source, that's where you end up. Well, over the years, we kind of dealt with all those pillars. We knocked them down. We dealt with the Titans, we dealt with the Legion, we dealt with the Old Gods. So I was hoping that they were going to take the cosmology chart from the Chronicles, which is like light and life and death and order and disorder, break open that Chronicle list, break open those power sources and use those to build up new storylines. And what did you know, at last BlizzCon they actually confirmed that is what they're working on. We already saw some hints of this. There is the Magar recruitment storyline in which we find out that the Light, in the past the Light was like, ooh, we are holy and retribution and we are great. But now it turns out that there's more to Light. It's very much like the mentality and how do you use it. So now we see that Yrl and these alternate Draenei, they are oppressing alternate orcs. And you're like, what's going on in that storyline? So there's like a Light going on. Of course, with Shadowlands, there's the Corner of Death being played around with. And we're finding out more and more about these sources behind these source of power. And I think that's great. I think that's really, really great that we're going to find out more about all these powers to be using. A lot of potential for storytelling, so there's that. There is still the story of the Infinite Dragonflight that needs to be told at some point. We got a small hint of that during Warlords, which I don't think they pushed any further. We've got like Kairos Dormu and just be like, I'm going to be infinite. I was like, oh cool, is this going to be the birth of the Infinite Dragonflight? But nope, that kind of fell flat. So that still needs to happen. And then there's the Great Dark Beyond, which is pretty much just space in the Warcraft universe. We have seen like 3 planets in the story of Warcraft. There are so many more. So just go into space. Just join the Pantheon and Sargeras. Azeroth can wake up and draw like that sword out of her back and be like, yo, we're going to kill some Void Lords. And then we go into the Great Dark Beyond. We're going to ride some Titans, right? And then we can make pit stops at different planets and find out about their cultures and their storylines and their threats. That would be great, in my opinion.
Okay. That's definitely a lot to that they could use for their future expansions. So hopefully, when we're in like expansion number 15, I've reached that. Do you think the writing has improved over the years?
Hard to say. Like, has the writing improved? Comes very much down to personal taste. For me, it's hit and miss. Especially if I look at Battle for Azeroth, there has been some amazing storytelling, but there's also been some really dumb storytelling. Like Sylvanas having a goal in mind as they invade Darkshore, and she wants to kill Malfurion, and then she literally has him on a silver plate, and she's like, nah, yo, Sourfang, you do it. And then Sourfang doesn't do it, so she has to change her plans, and I'm like, that's so dumb. You only did that because you had a story in mind. That's the only reason why you did it. So a bit of a hit and miss. You know, what I will say is that the way that the story has been presented, with so much more voice acting, in-game cutscenes, cinematics, and whatnot, the way it's been presented has improved immensely, especially if you compare where they come from. The story itself, hit and miss, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like with the voice acting and everything that we're getting now in the cinematics that it's more done for immersion for the player?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like for me, it was the Ralphgate cinematic, which was, I'm pretty sure, the first in-game cinematic that they did. And for me, that's what sparked my interest in the lore. Who knows who is out there that's watching this in-game cutscene of Jaina sailing to Kalteris, or a Sourfang versus Sylvanas duel, and be like, hey, what is going on here actually? Why am I fighting these mobs? Totally makes it more presentable. When I make my videos, I always like to do the game to do the talking for me as much as possible. And with more voice acting, that's just become more and more easier.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Something that, of course, is not voice acted are the novels that they now tend to release every time between expansions, which is like a little bit like a bridge. I know that a few years back, there was a lot of criticism about them because it felt for some people who, and I think Cataclysm was like the one thing that people were like, why the hell is this dragon here and who's he? For people who just came in, if you had not read the books, it was a bit like, I have no freaking clue what's going on. What's happening? And that has eased a little bit. It doesn't feel like you need to read the books, but how do you feel about the fact that they bring out these books that people almost should read in between the new expansions?
In my humble opinion, a book should complement the story but not tell it. And what you mentioned with the Cataclysm is a really good one, because the Cataclysm saw a lot of changes amongst the factions. For example, Karen died and Bane took over. There was Magni turning into a crystal. There was Vrall leaving the war chief title to Garrosh, and all of that was told in the book. There is war crimes, literally how we go to alternate Draenor. The entire start of the expansion, the Dark Portal turning red and whatnot, all of that explained is in the novel, and you don't hear about it until like halfway through the leveling experience. You know, 10 hours, like that's not how it's supposed to be. So I feel that the story should be in the game always, but the books can complement them. Like, for example, Before the Storm, you do not have to have read Before the Storm to understand what is happening in Battle for Azeroth, or the Arthas novel, for example. If you are curious about the character of Arthas and what it was like for him to go through those times, right, then pick up the book. But you don't need to read it to understand what Arthas is about. And I love that. If it complements, it's great. If it tells the story, then you need to figure out something else.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think with Before the Storm, and I don't know if you experienced it, but I really like that it gave you, as soon as you stepped into BFA, it felt much more, not heavy, but you know, there was a much more emotional reason why you wanted to go and see certain things. And I think the little nods that you got at Arathi, for instance, that you see those graves, then you're like, oh yeah, I read about this. But it's not game breaking that you're like, oh, there are graves here, or if you haven't read the book. So yeah, it's nice to see the change. Like
with the exception of Kalia, of course. Like Kalia has not been explained to the non-book reader. Unless you play the priest, you don't even know who Kalia is. It's like, okay. But those little nods were nice. And it was nice to get like an insight into the mind of Sylvanas and in the mind of Anduin. Perhaps, you know, with Shadowlands on the horizon and finding out more that the book is like, you know, is it actually real and true what we're reading? But I quite enjoyed Before the Storm before what it was. Yeah, I really did. And I can't wait for the new Shadowlands book. We're getting a somewhat new offer to cover that one. It's not going to be Christy Golden. So yeah, I'm curious about that one.
It will be interesting. I think because also with the... it's always... I find it a little bit... not stressful, that's not the right word, but it's interesting to see how certain writers tackle the characters. Because, you know, Christy Golden has a very, very particular way of writing the characters and you're starting to feel for the characters.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I have nothing against Knack at all. I think he did some really good writing, but the Raptor Army is where I drew my line.
Army, you and me are gonna get along just fine.
I was just a bit like, you know, that, you lost me there. But then I read the book from Illidan, and for me personally, you can see that this writer has done Warhammer because it's so dark compared to what it is, and I think it fits the character perfectly. So it was actually really nice to get a different writer for a character like Illidan, and I think, you know, what we are going to get for Shadowlands, because everyone seems like, oh yeah, Shadowlands, and I'm like, yeah, but it's still deaf, you know, it's like, it needs to be a little bit gritty, so I'm hoping that this will read a bit more like dark.
Yeah, and she has also written the Traveler Part 3. And in it, she doesn't shy away from the more darker stuff. There's like torment and whatnot. It's like, okay, cool. You got my interest. And like you mentioned, the Illidan novel, they go deep into what it means to become a demon hunter. It was, the story plots that they've set up in that one seem to have just been dropped completely for the expansion. But that's okay. You still learn about what it's like to become a demon hunter. And that's just, mwah.
Yeah, exactly. It was very dark. And I think at certain points I thought, right, this is more towards Warhammer now. How gritty and torturous and painful certain things seem. So no, I think it's nice to get a bit of variety in writers. When it comes to lore characters, however, you know, we have some big names out there, and I have quite the collection, as I think a lot of people do, with just WoW history or even like a character visual guide, just so you know a little bit like who was that again, so you can go back and forth. But what is your favorite lore character, even though there are so many to choose from? And if you have several, that's fine as well.
It's this question gets asked on stream a lot as well, and in the past my answer was easy. Like, I got a lot of favorites, but there's just one character that I really don't like, and that's Medan. But then they got rid of Medan, so I no longer have that answer. I love the origin story of Thrall. I think that they took him too far when he became Goel, but I love his origin story. Medivh the Guardian, it's such a good storyline as well. I quite like Jaina. I really like Sylvanas' story arc, and I'm really curious where it's going to go. Maybe if I want to do like what character don't I like, I'm gonna go with Nephanos. Maybe Nephanos can be my new Medan.
Okay, what is it about Nephanos that you're like, ugh?
Oh my, where to begin? All right, Nephanos. So we go into Legion with Mr. Nephanos, and we end up on like Stormheim. Our ships are crashed, and he's like, my dark lady, where are you, my dark lady? Yo, champion, I don't like you, go find my dark lady. Why is she paying you attention and not me, champion? I love the dark lady. He's like, dude, shut up. I don't care. Stop it. And then you got like the short story with Edge of Night, where of course Nephanos and Sylvanas have been doing all kinds of things when they were alive, and of course he was going to be hers always, and it's like, oh my god, Nephanos. He is the edgy milady guy of the Warcraft story, and I just don't like him. I really don't.
Oh, I've never heard him described like that, but that is perfect.
And I know there are people out there like, I really like Nephanos. I find him nice and edgy. And it's like, that's cool. I don't.
I think for a lot of... I don't know if you had that, because, you know, you do read the quest and you do see that, you know, he likes Sylvanas. And I'm talking this like in the previous expansions that you get. Okay, well, he's very, very loyal to her. There are rumors that there might have happened, but she always seems so cold and aloof that you're like, nah, probably not. And then, you know, you get that ending as a Sylvanas loyalist. And we're so far into the expansion now, I'm sorry guys, this is not a spoiler anymore.
No.
That if you stay loyal to Sylvanas as a Horde character, that you see Nephanos say my love to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a little bit like, okay, I don't know how to feel about this in a way, because I think everyone expected it, but to actually see those kind of feelings or something ushered, it feels so alien for the two of them.
Yeah, true. It was kind of like, if we think back to the whole Lordaeron start, where she tips his chin and he's like, you know what to do, my champion. And you could just see the drool getting out of his mouth. He's like, yes, Sylvanas, I know. And it's like, it was hinted at it there. And of course, the short story, if you did read it, where she picks one of her Valkyr to actually empower him and only him. There's a lot of little things here, as well as in that short story, he believes that everybody wants to do Sylvanas. And I'm like, did they really put that line in this story where everybody wants to do Sylvanas? But okay, whatever. So there were a couple of hints here and there. But like you said, like those emotions, I think that they tried to hide it more than what it actually is. Because if we look at like Forsaken, for example, in that Before the Storm meeting, they love their families so much so that they were ready to abandon Sylvanas and the Forsaken. So to like Forsaken don't feel anything anymore is just ridiculous. It's not true. I heard you scribbling, by the way. I hope it's going to be about Sylvanas being like a doggy, which is going to be great.
It might be.
But yeah, like to Naphanos as well in the short story, I believe he talks to like a Dark Ranger Eliada or something like that, where he's like, don't be ridiculous, me and Sylvanas don't feel anything like that. But of course they do. Like those feelings never died away. They just put it in there somewhere. Similar with how she became so upset when Varisa did not go through with their plans of war crimes, right? There's still emotion burning in there. It's just dampened, I suppose I would call it.
Yeah, I guess so. I think from my personal view, with how I saw it, like she just seems so cold through the entire expansion. You know, yeah, you get little bits of her maybe personality or her feelings in the books and all those things, but in the game, I think she comes across so cold and so unfeeling about anything and uncaring, except when she's really pissed off.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate it here. I'm going home.
But that's really all it was, and all of a sudden to see that, I don't know if I liked it, because I was like, no, because I want to hate you and I don't want to associate you with feelings. So, so yeah, it is interesting. But what was the thing with Madan that you hated? Because I thought Madan was interesting, and for people who don't know, he was the son of Corona with Medivh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he looked interesting in the comics. I'm not going to lie. He reminds me a lot of, if there are any critters out there, he reminds me a little bit of Fjord from Critical Role. But that's because he looks like an orc with, you know, other features. What was it about Madan that you did not enjoy?
Disregarding that pretty much any power under the sun is made available to him. And disregarding that everybody just is like, oh, Madan, you are the chosen one. The one major critical point that made me dislike Madan is because it butchers the storyline of Medivh the Guardian. At the end of Warcraft 3, the whole story arc of Medivh was to show the world that it no longer needed the Guardian. It no longer needed it. It was up to the Azeroth itself to defend it. And that is why, you know, his tale had come to an end. He fades in, fades out. End of Warcraft 3. It was beautiful. And then they're like, lol, there's another Guardian now. Enjoy. It's like, nah, thanks. Nah, thanks. I like Medivh's story better.
Would it have been okay if Garona did have a son, but he just didn't have the powers?
It would have been better if it wasn't a Guardian, but then you still have the issues of, like, he can some way, somehow combine all these different powers into one, and he is the chosen one. It would have been an improvement if he wasn't a Guardian, but still, it's a bit off, I would say.
Okay, so basically, like anything Captain Planet, we don't need you.
And I'm also wondering if they haven't changed it. I'm trying to think about Garona's heritage now. I know that in the Warcraft movie, they made the weird-ass decision to make Medivh her daddy instead of her lover. And I'm trying to remember if they actually changed it in the Chronicles as well now. Probably not.
Oh, that's actually good, because originally she was half orc, half Draenei, wasn't she?
Originally she was half orc, half human, because she was born out of the whole orcs invading Azeroth and hello humans, let's go. And then she became half orc, half Draenei, because we figured out that Marad was her uncle in the comics.
Oh yeah. Huh. That's interesting. I don't know if they've changed that in the I can't remember seeing that. Interesting. That's something that I will have to look up now afterwards.
Yeah, I do recall, like, in the Warcraft movie, they used the whole Medivh already teleported to Draenor before they even open up the Dark Portal, which is why... Have you seen the Warcraft movie, by the way? Did you catch that he was supposed to be your daddy?
Yes, that was very much heavily hinted at that he was her father.
I must have watched a different movie. Like, people came out of the theater and was like, yeah, it was crystal clear that he was supposed to be your dad. And I was like, what? But it might have been the camp scene where all of a sudden she tells Ketka, like, you want to do me. That might have been the one that set me off.
Yeah, that is, I still think that, what's the actress's name? Paula Patton, isn't it? I just think she's too pretty.
Oh,
and I'm like, she's far too beautiful to be Garona. I don't see a vicious orc at all. So I don't know. That put me off a little bit. I had nothing against the Warcraft movie. I was happy to see it representing, but there were certain things that I was just not really digging.
It was. I think a big problem comes from the cutting board. I think there was a vision, and it could have been great, but just the storyline we got and how rushed it was, and that campfire scene will haunt my nightmares. And if people out there, if you haven't seen the Warcraft movie before, let me spoil you a little bit. It is time for exposition. Cue Garona, Khadgar, and Lothar sitting around a campfire, and out of the blue, Garona looks over at Khadgar, and she's like, "You want to do me, huh?" And Khadgar's like, "What?" And then Garona goes on this story about how the orcs are really brutal and they break your bones when they mate, and she has had a lot of broken bones. And then Khadgar starts to share his life story, and Lothar, as on cue, is like, "Well, glad we got that out of the air," or "Glad we got that exposition done." And I'm like, yeah, movie teller, that's great, but even acknowledging that all of a sudden it's an exposition moment doesn't make it any better, my dude. We're still sitting at a campfire where there's all of a sudden these weird-ass stories coming to the front.
That could have easily been cut and then replaced by something completely else. Yeah, that's just odd. I think maybe I've banned that from my head or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to remember that at all. But then again, I'm also, if I can go on a tangent, what was up with those high elves? Like, honestly.
At the table, yeah? That small moment of high elves.
Yeah, and they just looked weird. I'm really sorry, but I'm half Asian, so I can say it. I'm not racist, but I just thought they just looked Asian to me. Like, they all look really weirdly like cheap makeup. Like, okay, we're just going to get some Asian actors because they look completely different than all our Caucasian or African American cast, and then we'll put really cheap, like, fake ears on them
and eyebrows.
And
Don't forget the eyebrows.
Yeah, oh my god, it was horrific. I thought, just leave them out. I'd rather have you leave them out and just get rid of them, because no, I was not digging that at all. So I think that still haunts me mostly of the movie. Other than that, I quite like the movie.
All right.
It's just I think, seeing Goldshire without people dancing on the tables is always nice. So
yeah, visually, like, seeing the war, that's honestly, that's the only reason I went to see the movie. I wanted to see Warcraft visually on the big screen. In that department, they delivered. The movie itself,
yeah, it's and I kind of get it, because it's very difficult cramming everything that happens out there and so many different stories in a movie, even if it's like 2 hours or longer than that. You can't really get all of that what you get in the books. But that's my big thing with Harry Potter as well. You can't get it all on the movies, really, from what you read in the books. So yeah.
But it doesn't
would you
mean,
like to see?
That doesn't mean that you can't make a good story out of it. Sure enough, you can't get everything in there, but you can learn about pacing and, like, get it done. And I really think that they had a different storyline in mind. I really think that it was just the cutting board that butchered it. But yeah, sorry, what do I think? What? Huh?
Do you think that it would have been better if they would have taken Arthas' story?
Maybe. But even Arthas' story has, like, a lot of characters to introduce and explain things. Sure enough, there's like a big background behind it. But they also wanted to make a movie not just for the Warcraft fans, but for the general audience. Would Arthas have been a great story to tell? I think so. Would Star Wars have sued them for copyright? Maybe. But no, I think Arthas would have been a great story to tell as well. But the whole origin story of the orcs and humans and the first invasion, it's not an impossible story to tell, but they could have done better.
Yeah. Let's hope that maybe someone else will want to tackle it again in the future, and
they'll take that risk again
and do something with it. Yeah, true. Very true. Okay, so I think we've talked loads about lore, but you might want to still talk a little bit about it with my next question. Last year, BlizzCon, Shadowlands was revealed for what we didn't know yet, what hasn't been leaked before then. How did you feel? And what were your initial thoughts when they said Shadowlands will be the next expansion?
First thought was, okay, cool. It is going to be Shadowlands. Because as you said, it was already heavily suggested and whatnot. Even though with the leaks, like what they leaked out, I believe there was like a picture of ghost ships in Stormwind Harbor. Like that's not going to be the thing. Just the title Shadowlands is there. So that was my initial reaction, and then I started listening to the panels and whatnot. I loved the Bolvar versus Sylvanas cinematic. I thought that was very cool. The immediate question, of course, was like, how the heck is Sylvanas taking Bolvar out like that? Which they explained the next day. Okay, the first day we thought like, okay, she just went to the forest and killed a couple of boars, and she leveled up a little bit. But no, there's actually a reason for it, which is kind of cool. And then they did the whole deep dive panel. The tower was the thing that really sparked my interest. Like, oh, that looks really, really cool. Covenants and whatnot, like the inner workings of the expansion. I kind of felt like, okay, what are the new shiny stuff to play with? Because no new major race, no new major class to play in. But it's all still in development, and it looks interesting now that we see more. Like visually is not a spoiler, I suppose. Now that we see more about the Covenants, I love how not only you're going to make these choices based on the Covenant abilities, you're also going to be making very hard choices on the cosmetic rewards like armor and all that good stuff. And then there is the story that you're going to have to make choices for, like to figure out what is going on with these Covenants. And I love that there's so much incentive to actually deep dive into these Covenants on all your characters and all your alts and get the full scope of it all. Can't wait. Oh, I can't wait.
That's really good. Do you feel like the Covenants will also, because this is a thing that as a role player and being part of a roleplay server, I find it very interesting that every time I ask a person, okay, so which Covenant are you picking and why, that a lot of people are saying, oh, this will fit my character the best. Even if people who are completely not role players go at the moment, not for min-maxing and for abilities, but they go purely by this will fit my character the best. I think they would be happiest here. Is that something that has, done it for you? That you're like, actually, I'm looking at Covenants now in this way, but also now that you're saying that you have to start looking at the story and which suits most. Do you think that's a good thing that Blizzard is going that direction to immerse you, I guess, a bit more?
I think it's a really good choice. Like my worry when it comes to the Covenants, as I'm sure that many worry about, is that these Covenant abilities are going to be the defining factor as to where you're going to play. If it's going to be like a racial ability, a 1 or 2% damage difference between different Covenants, no big deal. Only the top end Mythic Raiders will care. If it's going to be like Void Gear or Azerite Gear, where you're all of a sudden looking at a 20 to 30% difference, people are going to care about, okay, I'm raiding, I'm doing Mythic Plus, I want my character to be the best that it is. You're going to care and you're going to feel forced to be part of a Covenant. Now, for me, I still need to see the other ones, but what I've seen with the Datamite armor and the storyline in the first zone and the aesthetics of it all, I think it's a great choice to make the choice so difficult. Because at the end of the day, if you're into lore and you want to experience it all, you're just going to play through it anyways. You're going to get those alts up to level. You're going to go through it. If you don't care enough about spending the time in, don't worry. I will be covering every single lore, every single story. And of course, there's also going to be other websites that are going to data mine it and show it. So you don't necessarily have to do it in order to know. But then there's also like feeling part of something, and they've done a really good job from what we've seen so far in creating an identity, a certain philosophy connected to the Covenants, which makes you, even if you're not a role player, even if you don't feel like, look, I'm just a regular old Nobbel paladin that plays his character, you might feel more connected to something like the Maldraxians or Revendreth or Arnwald. You might feel like, okay, I'm really liking this aesthetic of the zone. I wouldn't mind if I get sent back here 5 times a day because of my quest or whatnot. Yeah, I love that. I really love that.
Okay, cool. But you're Paladin. Have you already have a vision at the moment where he would go?
Right now, I'm being pulled to Arnwald. Arnwald, from what I've seen so far, is story-wise, aesthetic-wise, that's really where I'm like, okay, that's really, really cool. But we still don't know. We still know so very little about the alpha. More and more information is being revealed. And my major deciding factor, if I do decide the raid in Shadowlands, is going to be the Covenant ability. If it's as much of a difference as I fear, I'm probably gonna go with the Covenant that gives me the most power, and just to do the other ones with my ults, and I'll be like, okay, it doesn't really matter that much to me what faction I'm part of. I'm also curious to find out if they, like the transmogs and whatnot, you can unlock certain transmogs by joining certain covenants. I'm curious if they're going to be account bound, or if they're going to be like the allied races, where you need to be part of the covenant to equip it. And I'm fearing that it's going to be the last option, meaning that you're not going to be looking at adding stuff to your collection.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I have not even thought about that. That's going to make some interesting decisions for me with what I have to do.
Like, I understand the fantasy, of course. Like, you want an Arnwald to look like an owl boy that's running around, and you want a Maldraxian or a vampire to look like a vampire. But it would also be really nice if my level 10 character could like transmog into a vampire. Please, Blizzard, please.
That would be cool. Oh, that would give you so many possibilities. And it would, I always feel like the fact that I can already transmog my heirlooms quite early is a good thing, because some of the heirlooms just look god awful. So yeah, that would be really cool. Okay, so not only did we get covenants, but they have also changed the leveling, because as you mentioned, the leveling in BFA has been horrendous.
I didn't mention that. I like the leveling as well.
But for your alts, was it still?
Yeah, I actually no. I'm actually of the mindset that I quite enjoyed leveling Battle for Azeroth. It's just keeping up with your alts, like the Azerite and whatnot. That's the horrible part.
Very true. Very true. Okay. But still, if you have to roll a new alt, and if you don't want to spend money and buy a boost, you have to go from 1 to 120. That's going to be changed. I have been told that apparently leveling is going to be 3 times as quick compared to what it is now. We're not talking about the buff that we're getting at the moment. But you can also change where you level. So, we already have some freedom, I guess, with where we want to go at the moment. But most of the time, we skip a lot of the parts of the expansions. Take Pandaria, for instance. You go to the first 2 zones, that's it. Then you already have to go to a different place because, Draenor calls. You can't. It's not good to stay in Pandaria. Now we can stay for entire expansions. If you would have to start leveling something from the beginning, are there certain expansions that you're like, yes, this is the expansion I want to level just because it's your favorite expansion? Or is it a more aimed towards, okay, well, I'm leveling, for instance, a Volpera. I want to level my Volpera in Mr. Pandaria because I think, have all the furry creatures in one area. Something like that.
Funny enough, for me, as much as I'm into the lore, I've never really been into the role-playing section of it, and I've also never really been into envisioning myself as the one that's playing in Azeroth. That's also the reason why I play a female paladin. It's my character that I play. So those choices, like faction choices, faction pride, or areas that have never really been connected to, okay, this is where I feel home. Maybe that's going to change for the Covenants, now that I think about it, but story-wise, choice-wise, where would I going to be leveled? It's going to be interesting to see. Like, I wonder if those bonus zones, like Warlords and Legion, where you get like the bonus XP and it goes really, really quickly, I wonder if they're going to stay or if they're going to be removed. Because if they're going to stay, then that's going to be a big factor for those that just want to level quickly to be done with it. They're going to go to the bonus zones expansions rather than a Burning Crusade that does not offer that. And story-wise, that's difficult. Like, Mop is one of my favorites. Probably just because it's aesthetically so pleasing and there's fun characters in there. Wrath of the Lich King, if you're looking for zones that are just chunk full of story, like 5 stories per zone, that's what you're going to be looking for. Burning Crusade, I appreciate. Like, I know a lot of people don't like leveling a Burning Crusade, but I love that the zones are just make a circle and do it like 3 times. So you've done all the quests in the zone. I love that. Just circle. Turn on some Netflix and fly around and circles. It's great. Cataclysm, I'm not a fan. I'm gonna be honest. Fajir can go away. Like, I know, we're under the sea, but that's not my problem. Vazir's unfinished storylines, okay? They're giving me a lore boner, and they're not finishing it, and it's awful. The storyline is actually not finished in Vazir, people. How can we like it? All right? I'm just talking to imaginary people now. This is great.
No, it's true. Because I'm sure that a lot of people go like, yep, absolutely agree with that. There's a lot of loose ends in Vazir.
It's awful, and it has such cool potential. And it's like, lol, Neptulon be kidnapped. Lol, he freed himself. We said so on Twitter. It's like, really, really, Blizzard? We're doing lore on Twitter now, are we? Yeah, okay, cool. But yeah, the choices are going to be difficult because Warlords, I quite enjoy the recent change that they made to leveling. I haven't hated leveling an expansion in quite a while. And even Battle for Azeroth has some really cool storylines. Nothing that ever made me go like, ew, I really don't want to see the zone again. Perhaps maybe Stormsong Valley with the Quillboar. Like, oh my god, especially during beta times, there was so much Quillboar. So much. And I'm like, how are Quillboar max level mobs again, Blizzard? What is so special about these Quillboar? And they just never explain it. It's like, here's Quillboar, go kill them.
Yeah, that is a good point, actually. You made me think about a lot more things now that I never really realized. Okay. Fair enough. Right, let's go to the factions. And that's a little bit of the, I guess, the last bit of Warcraft trivia, maybe? Not even trivia questions.
You can never talk enough about the lore, FYI.
That's true. How do you feel about where we are with the factions at this point in time? Because I say that there is a certain, peace with quotation marks, because it is Warcraft. Peace is never really there. And a lot of people have said, it's always the same pattern. We are at war, then we have a common enemy, and we are like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Then we're at war again because someone says something that pisses the other faction off. How do you feel where we're at this point in time?
Like, the pattern is clear, and people are 100% right. Mr. Pandaria and Battle for Azeroth tell a very, very similar storyline, which sucks. It's a simple change could have been the Alliance the aggressor in Battle for Azeroth. A simple change would have been Greymane striking out at Sylvanas first, which makes the Horde instead of the aggressor. They would be the defender. It would have been such a small change and yet so massive. But they didn't, because Sylvanas is the bad guy. Whoop-de-freaking-do. So now where we stand is, the Horde is like, hey, look, the Alliance are dumb enough to go kumbaya again. Like, look, we attacked them, we caused war, and they're actually dumb enough to go for peace again. Lol. Let's all hold hands and hold a circle and be like cheery about it. Whereas on the Alliance side, Anduin is like, look, I know, we got war, but we're not gonna go to peace if we're gonna cause more war, people. We need to give this a try again. To which people like Greymane and Tronda Whisperwind are like, lol, no. No, that's not gonna happen. Mainly Tronda. Tronda has like the whole Night Warrior inside of her, and she's like, nah, man, we tried that again, and it failed, and a lot of people died. The genocide of the Night Elves. You can go and sign your piece of paper all you want. I'm out. I'm gonna kill Sylvanas, and she's gonna have her storyline to play. Again, they're blaming a whole lot of things that happened with the Horde on Sylvanas, on the War Chief, which is a different argument to have. Is the identity of the Horde really linked that much to the War Chief? Because that's a whole interesting story to think about. But anywho, they're blaming it on Sylvanas, and Tron is going to go after that. And Gen does like his little squeezy hand thingy, and he's like, I don't agree with you, Anduin. I don't agree that this piece is going to work. Because he lost Gilneas to Sylvanas, lost his son to Sylvanas, been trying to get his revenge. In Legion, we saw him mess up her plans with Helya and Ayer. Then in Battle for Azeroth, they gave him like this little war boner, and he was like, yeah, it's all fine and dandy that she, blasted off again, but I wanted to kill Sylvanas. This is no end. What the heck? We're still at war. That's where we are. Now, from my personal feeling, I don't really have the faction pride. For the Alliance, for the Horde, I don't care. I go for the lore. And I feel that it's really weird for Blizzard. Like, story-wise, I understand it's Warcraft, there has to be war, that's fine. But I don't really understand why they're so against the idea of opening up the gates for Alliance and Horde players to work together and actually raid and party together. Story-wise, it happens time and time again. Like you said, there's this big bad, and the Alliance and Horde are like, hey, that's funny, if we work together, all of a sudden we're stronger. 5 expansions after each other where they learn this lesson. So why not have that in-game? Why not make it a feature where you could just party with your friends? Like, there's a dwindling player base, and there's also the difference in racial abilities between the Horde and the Alliance, seeing how like the Horde Mythic roster gets filled up quicker, like the Hall of Fame, whereas compared to the Alliance. But if you open up those gates and you let them fight together, I really don't see the problem with it. But
yeah, and I think we already have mercenary mode in PvP.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're making a very that's a valid point, and it would make interesting play, I think, as well.
And it would just open the gates. Like it's for me as a streamer, it's really annoying to have people in chat be like, "Yeah, I would love to join your Hellfire Citadel run, but I play Horde." And I'm like, "Yeah, that really does suck, right?" So if you just let them swap over, it doesn't even have to be that you change your buildings and whatnot. You don't have to merge everybody in the same building. Still have your factions and whatnot. Just open up the ability to party with each other.
Yeah, and I'm completely 100% behind that. I think that would be a really good thing to do. Okay. So that's for the factions. Now something completely different, because you said already that you have people commenting on your videos and your guild in the past. But what has the Warcraft community meant to you?
The world. What has the Warcraft community meant to me? If you would have told me, like, oh lord, 8 years I think I've been doing this, 10 years, that I would be where I am today, I would not have believed you. They have given me wings. They have given me opportunities I could not dream of. I am so overwhelmed and happy with people that actually care enough to watch the video, let alone leave a comment, let alone join the streams, let alone be a subscriber and financially help the system. It's insane. And to you know, geek out with each other over something as silly as a lore video, as a story in a video game. It's great. You know, it's not the end of the world, but it's just great fun to be speculating. The other day we were talking about Shadowlands on the Discord, and some of the big brain boys were like, "What about this idea? What about this idea?" And then you start bringing together this picture of what the expansion could be and what kind of potential there is for the storytelling. You're like, this is so cool. Like, embrace your inner geek. I love that, and I love that there are people enough that care about it, and I care a whole lot about them. I found it always very difficult to express it because, you know, you choke up a little bit and then you see like people be there. But quite recently I did a little update video because we're going, of course, in the Shadowlands alpha coverage, and you're like, okay, we're going to go into the busier times, and I really wanted to do an update video just to let people know, like, hey, I make lore videos on the Monday, and then there's going to be extra content. And you read all these nice comments of people like, look, I've been watching your videos for like 8 years now. I remember your Mr. Pandaria oh ho 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 intro. I remember your solo videos, and I remember that you've done this, and I'm like, it's mental to me that you're still with me, but I love your faces. And the Warcraft community has been amazing. Blizzard themselves as well, FYI. Been lucky enough to actually meet a couple of the developers over at Blizzard. I've been blessed enough to actually do a project with Blizzard, which was one on the bucket list. It's like, I want to make a video for Blizzard, and just like, check, yep, done that. And to just see, like, Blizzard could have easily pulled a Nintendo 2 years ago and be like, if you use our video game as your video coverage, yeah, we're just going to shut you down. And I'm just blessed Blizzard is actually like, no, we like it when people use our content. Go for it. And I love them for that as well.
Oh, I didn't really know that. I didn't know that they could do that, so that's really nice to hear.
Nintendo was awful. There was the whole debate about Let's Plays and what is fair use and whatnot. And Nintendo at some point decided that they were just going to copyright strike you if you use Nintendo games, or you could sign up with Nintendo themselves and they'll hand over X amount of the earnings to Nintendo so that you would have the privilege of covering their video games. Recently, they have made the difference and they have decided to go back on that, but I always find it a blessing that Blizzard is like, no, you can use our content. Of course, it has to be transformative and you need to work with it. But they could have easily been dicks about it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with the amount of the type of content you see out there. So, yeah. Oh, that's really good to know. I didn't even realize that. So that's actually really, yeah, that's a nice thing to hear, actually. Okay. Silly question. What's your favorite in-game food?
You know, I thought about this question. I was like, what is my favorite in-game food? I honestly have no idea. Do they have steak in the game? Because I'm quite a fan of steak.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's some steak out there.
I'll go with the steak. We did an episode once where we were like cooking things from the WoW cookbook. And this was a couple of creators, like friends together, and they messed up the recipe, and they had left like the apple inside of the warm drink. It was so disgusting. It was so gross.
Can you name and shame who did that?
That was Bellular and Loss. They were responsible for that drink. And Bellular, bless his heart, actually took a sip of it to try it. And was like, oh.
Okay, well, we know never to ask for cooking for anyone.
The video is still up, by the way. If you're interested, it's like a Christmas video. It is, it's one of the best, one of the fondest videos that I look back to.
I love stuff like that. It's nice, I think, to see content creators sometimes just be people. I know that sounds really weird, but it's just nice to see them do other things than just being behind the camera and just presenting or making a video and just doing things that us mere mortals are also doing. So
get that mindset out of your head, please. Like lore gods and content creators and no. Honestly, they're just people, and you with like this whole interview setup, you get like a little taste of what people actually like before the show and after, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's I think for me it's really it's nice to actually see people that that in a way I really look up to see them in a different way and just have a chat with them, but I know that people, like everyone says that, like Hazel said it to me and Talia and Evitel and you, that you don't have to feel like humbled, but it is, I think, for a lot of people who don't have that kind of following, and you feel like you have someone who is quite prominent in the community, it is very humbling that they want to talk to you, and just seeing them as a normal person is really, really nice, and it just for me feels like, yeah, this is the WoW community just coming together, because I don't know if any other communities that are out there that have that kind of setup, if they would be so welcoming to smaller streamers, smaller content producers, you know what I mean? So
I hope so. It's a mindset to have, though. It's a mindset to have, like, this person has a certain amount of numbers and this person has a certain amount of, cloud, as they call it on the internet, to then, like, yeah, it's difficult. And in the case of content creators, it all comes down to, like, you know them for a reason, so there's always a big chunk of time investment that you might not see at the forefront, but sometimes it's really difficult to make time. But you hit me at just the right moment. If you would have emailed me actually a week later, I might have been like, look, I love you, but Shadowlands Alpha's out, I'm just going to play my tower right now, I'll just be a wee bit busy. But no, it just worked out perfectly. I loved it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think, like I always say to anyone who tries to reach out to other people, everyone has a life, and I'm very aware that people are very busy with anything. So if I would have been fine with you saying, I have time for you maybe in 2 months, that would have been fine.
It's hard to plan, yeah.
But it is very hard to plan. I think, especially now with Shadowlands, I think all of us are really, really busy, and especially the people who make videos about. Because oh god, I tried making a video once and never again. No, honestly, it's hard work. I have so much respect for you guys doing that, because it's so much work, and the script writing, the planning of what you want to show, and then the editing and everything, and making sure that it gets done in a timely way as well, because a lot of you are also very much into this is news now, and you can't produce something that will be like put out like months later. Then I'm very much in awe with how much work goes into YouTubers, especially. I think that is a lot of work, because all I do is just I reach out to people and I ask them stupid questions and I record it, and that's
not fair either. That's just selling yourself a bit short. You did do the whole very professional manner. Like you said, you would be okay if it was 2 months. There are plenty of people out there who would take it really personal if they never hear something back. It's like, oh my god, this content creator thinks so highly of themselves because they never replied. And it's like, sometimes you get 25 emails a day. It's like, sorry, I'm making my videos. And like you said, it's the news channels out there as well. In my case, I'm lucky enough that I could potentially work ahead of time, especially when I need to take a little break. But even then, the lore sometimes changes one day and the other, and it's like, ooh, that needs to be edited. And yeah, I'm actually, yeah, I've always been wondering, like, what do I want to do with it? Because I am a one-man business. I do everything myself. And I'm like, do I actually want to expand and add, like, personnel to it and get people going? And now sometimes I get people in for, like, special projects and thumbnails and whatnot. I don't know. I love the process so much. I know it just devours my life, but I love the process of video making and just seeing your little baby come to life and putting on the internet and everybody is like, boo. And you're like, this is my little baby. And they're like, boo. It's like, okay, shh.
Have you ever had because I know that people can be horrible with comments and things like that, and people love to troll. Have you ever had something where you had like negative comments, which I don't know if you've ever had, because I don't really go through the comments a lot, because I just feel like that's setting you up for like just a negative day at times with going through certain channels. But have you ever had negative comments that you're like, ugh, this is really like not something, am I doing the right thing? Or
oh totally. Like, have you ever gotten negative comments? It's the internet. Anybody who puts themselves out there on the internet is going to get negative comments from and it depends. Like, some people just don't really like the way I talk. Like 2 years later, I just recently had a comment of a guy like, oh, shame, I was here 2 years ago and you already talk with that silly accent. I'll leave now. It's like, did you really look me back up? Okay, cool. And especially at the start, way back when, I was really dealing, because you're still finding your footing, right? And you're finding out, like, who do I want to be as a content creator? What do I want to put out there? Do I want to go with the flow of what the viewers want? Or do I want to go against the current and do what I want? And it's, how do you mix and mingle it together? So you're going to get a lot of comments. And hoge bomen vangen veel wind, as we say in Dutch. High trees catch a lot of wind. People love trying to bring down things that are rising up, because, you know, they themselves can't get that high, and they're like, come down to my level. And at some point, you either, and a lot of people treat it differently. Like, I've known content creators that were like, I'm just going to shut down any and all comments. It's enough. I don't want to deal with this. I've known content creators that get really personal about it, and they're like, how dare you? And they start fighting back on every single one. Me personally, I try to filter it. I still read almost every single comment that's left behind. It's part of my little joy, and I try to filter it, and I try to filter, like, okay, who is actually trying to help me and who is trying to bring me down. And there's a fine line between the two things. It's also very much about how they bring it. And when we're talking about the negative comments, in my case, and I joke about people going boo at my videos, because if everybody was doing that, I wouldn't be here. I actually have a very positive community, which I'm really, really proud of. Occasionally, you get a weird ass comment. Like, I had somebody that once upon a time told me that I should throw myself in front of a bus because I rolled my R's, and I'm like, that's just a crazy. What are you talking about? It's a crazy talk. But the one comment that hurt me the most, that was on a video of a content creator that passed away, and I was so shocked that I left a comment like, I can't believe this happened. And this person was something in the line of, I wish it was you, or see, this actually a content creator was really good. And, you know, it was a really negative comment. I was like, this is not the time and place, dude. I'm hurting right now. How is it even possible that you think of leaving a negative comment like that? But this person felt the right time to tell me what exactly they thought of me. But that's the internet.
Wow.
There's no filter on the internet. Everybody has access to the internet, and you need to at some point realize that it's not like in college. It's not like in real life. They're not peers standing over you and being like supportive and wanting you to succeed and want to give you feedback. Not all of them are going to be like that. Some people just really want to hurt you. Some people really love you, and everything in between. And once you realize that and you start filtering it, you need to find your own way into dealing with these comments.
Yeah, I definitely think that being on Twitch or any streamer platform, and being on YouTube, you have to have a certain layer of thick skin.
Yeah, some people expect
the comments that
some people expect that when they go on the internet that they enter this little safe bubble, and anything they put out there, people are supposed to praise them for it. And any negative criticism, you're a hater, you're a Nazi, you're a whatever name in there. And I'm like, that's fine to think that, and you're gonna create your own echo chamber. But if you open yourself up to the possibility that some criticism is not to destroy you, but to actually help you improve, then a whole new realm of possibilities opens up, ain't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be your advice for anyone who wants to go out there and create videos videos or...
My advice for new content creators would be, first of all, find your footing, your Northern Star. Find out why it is that you want to make content. If your mindset is like, I'm going to make the big bucks and I'm going to get 1 million views, I'm going to be covering the beta of Mr. Pandaria and everybody's going to love me, don't. You're not going to be that guy or girl or whatever. You're not going to do that. Do it because you have a passion for the subject you're covering. Do it because you have a passion for video making, because that's what you're going to be doing most of the time. So you might as well find a passion for it. And if you love doing it, then regardless what people think of your content, it's out there. You made it. You are the one who is happy with the content. And that is all that matters, because it's your YouTube channel. And once you found that foundation, then you can look at the comments and be like, okay, well, somebody told me that maybe I should slow down my voice a little bit. Or somebody told me that I roll my R's a little bit too much. Okay, maybe I can tone that down. Then you can like fine tune and figure out where do you want to take it.
That's a good one. And just to come back on the rolling R's, I've heard girlies say that you could read the dictionary to them with your rolling R's. So you can take that one at least.
Luckily, like I said, luckily the majority of comments are positive, right? It's just, sadly, your brain is wired in such a way that the negative stuff stands out more. I don't know why, because I have more positive than negative in my life.
I think it's a human thing, isn't it? I think we love to sometimes break ourselves down with anything, and I think maybe could that be a Dutch thing, that whole and I'm sorry guys for if you're not Dutch then you won't understand this doe maar gewoon, dan doe je al gek
totally
genoeg,
a Dutch thing.
It basically translates to just act normal, then you're crazy enough as it is, which beats down any form of being unique and and just yourself, and it's all like conform. So I think that might also be a Dutch thing, probably. But no, I'm, like I said to you before, I'm so happy that there's a Dutch person representing. So I would just, the thicker the accent, the better.
Oh, hell yeah. One last thing, by the way, about comments. If you're ever getting overwhelmed by negative comments, just keep in mind that YouTube loves activity and YouTube loves comments. So even those that leave hate comments are helping you out in the long run.
Very true. Or as they say, what is that saying again? Any press is good press.
Oh, right, yeah.
No matter what.
Any attention is good attention.
Exactly. Okay, well, Nobbel, we're heading to the last question, which is the weird question. My failed experiment question, which is, what is your whisper? And for those who are new, a whisper can be anything. So it could be a wish for the game, any game mechanics you want implemented or taken out, or maybe a bit of theory crafting about the story. Basically anything. So, Nobbel, what is your whisper?
What is my whisper right now? I would very much love them to add Dragon Swarm, bards, necromancers, anything new. And I'll stop whispering now. Sorry, everybody. Go and clean up. No. Like, what is my whisper? My wish for the game. Mainly, I'm hoping for the wish of the game is that there's going to be fun content to play through, alt-friendly, and just get people excited to play the game. That's what I'm really hoping for. I'm hoping for a really good expansion, and time will tell if we're going to get that. Mechanic-wise, is it just whispered? I wouldn't mind seeing like bards and necromancers, or maybe like dragon sworn added. Like those are, I believe, mortals allied to like the dragons, and then you could get individual instructors like a Rephion or an Alexstrasza that teaches you the ways of being a dragon, and you could transform mid-battle and do all kinds of crazy things. I would love to see that. Lore-wise, in my humble opinion, I think worst case scenario would be that Sylvanas knew that the Shadowlands were out of balance all along, and therefore she started burning down Night Elf trees. That was kind of like doing it for the greater good, sort of say. Or have like the Void be the great manipulator behind it all. I think that would be worst case scenario. And best case, I mean, I'm not a story writer. I like them to surprise me. There is a lot of interesting stuff behind the Shadowlands, though. Like, there's a lot of philosophy that we can think about when it comes to the jailer dynamic. Like, what exactly is the jailer? What is his motivation? Where did he come from? How did he become the jailer? How did he liberate himself from the machine? What about Sylvanas? What is her motivation? What does she want out of all of this? What about the Shadowlands? Like, is the system in the Shadowlands supposed to be this way? Are we just endless batteries feeding it with anima? There's a lot of cool things that they can work with, and I'm really excited to see where that's all gonna go.
You and me both. Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to getting some new information. So, fingers crossed it will all be as you hope for. So, Nobbel, thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
This was great fun. Thank you. Hour and a half flew by. I love it.
I know! This is probably one of the longest interviews I've ever had.
Oh,
but
hell
it
yeah.
was so enjoyable. So thank you so much. And if people who have not been following you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
If you type in Nobbel in Google, it will send your way. I'm on YouTube, on Twitch, on Instagram, on Patreon, on Twitter, on Facebook, on, well, not there, but, you know, OnlyFans and Pornhub. I'll leave those links out. But just type in Nobbel in Google or Nobbel lore, and it will take you there. And for those that are curious about getting into the lore, just find something that you're interested in and start from there.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you very much for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was amazing talking to Nobbel, and hopefully he will come back in the future once Shadowlands maybe has reached us all for a bit longer and we've played for a while, and we can talk about all of that lore that's been reaching us and that we discovered. So let's go to what you guys said on Twitter for the question of the week. I wanted to know your favorite and least favorite lore character, and this is what you guys said. So Grand Nagus said, this is a rhetorical question, right? Because she's an all-round awesome character and her story has so much potential, as we see now with Shadowlands and how it links to her story, Edge of Night. And of course he's talking about Sylvanas, and I would not have expected anything less from Grand Nagus. The Crosshair said Jaina and Jaina. It's not as much about the character arc in itself, but Bliss not knowing if she's part of the story or not. Note that I haven't played the latest. That's mostly why I like Sylvanas more. She gets stuff done and sticks around. Fair enough, fair enough. I do have to say that Jaina does get a little bit of work in this this final installment, I guess. Loch Nissa said Sylvanas on both accounts. She was a hero, broke free from the Lich King control, became a leader to the Forsaken, and now she's a cheap shot at a villain / roll eyes. We will have to see what Shadowlands brings for her, really. But yeah, at the moment she does strike us as the villain. Nick Z said, favorite character is Nazgrim because of how strictly he adhered to his code of honor. Not sure who my least favorite is. That's not a bad thing if you don't really have a least favorite. Kyber76 said, Turalion and Illyria. I was intrigued when they were missing for all that time, and I'm more intrigued to see where the light and void takes them. As for least, Garrosh. His movie stereotype got boring fast. Oh, poor Garrosh. I think he's in a lot of replies. Ali said, Arthas as a favorite. For some reason, the whole concept of being good, the pressure of expectations, and how he struggled with that was relatable. Reading about his descent into madness and evil was interesting. Plus his story tied in a lot of other lore characters. Least favorite, I would have to say Garrosh. Yep, you're not the only one. The Meternaut said, Garrosh is a giant dickwad. I like that. Yeah, true, true. And she continues, my favorite is Darian Mograine. That guy just keeps getting knocked down and keeps standing back up. He knows what he has become, but he still does his best to do the right thing. Yeah, least favorite, Garrus and Putress. Ooh, Putress. Controversial. Okay, okay. Clanker said, it's a toss-up between Arthas and Deathwing for my favorite. They both make great classic stories of a noble soul turned to ultimately evil. As for least favorite, Kalia Menethil, hands down. She just feels so one-dimensional and like a lore insert. She doesn't feel organic at all. I'm wondering if we're going to... I mean, we should have more in regards to Kalia, right? Because it feels a little bit like a... Okay, well, this happened, and that's it now. So yeah, I kind of agree with you there. AJ said, hard to pick just one, but it's probably Illidan, a little selfish and egotistical, but despite doing things that made him hated by many, understandably, he still had a goal that would achieve the best results for the sake of the universe, as well as giving him the power he craved. Also, it's hard to deny his sheer coolness factor and voice acting, both Warcraft 3 and WoW. Also, my love for Night Elves and fascination with demons and the Burning Legion have been my favorite enemy to fight, as well as Outland being my favorite setting. Yeah, I've got some bias. Hard to also not love and sympathize with Kill Fuss, who often made the best decision he could despite having been in many desperate and impossible situations, eventually still leading to a brighter future for his people despite some rather naughty decisions. Also, Belfmaster Race. Yeah, and I think it will be interesting when we see Kil'Thuzad in Shadowlands. That will be very interesting to see what happened there. Gitty, I'm sorry if I butcher names. Gitty said, Moira Torreson. Loved her story in The Shattering. Sadly, she isn't used that much. No, I do know that we saw her a little bit in the short comic with Magni coming back. But other than that, yeah, it feels a little bit quiet. So it would be nice if we get a little bit more of Moira back. Jordan said, Arthas is definitely my favorite, most well-written story. Least favorite is probably Nathanos, overforced in Sylvanas' simp. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Nathanos. Cheryl said, Moira as favorite. I love dwarf lore, and here is a chance for Blizzard to discuss the pitfalls of patriarchy. Least favorite, Galliwix, because he's awful. Awful, or just written to be awful? I don't... interesting. Frasley said, a favorite has to be Anduin. I'm going to get flack for this, but he's struggling to be a leader when he isn't really a good one and pushed into it. I want to see where things go with him. Least favorite, Thermoplug. Because gnomes are still stuck away from Gnomorgan. I want to see us return. Yeah, those are two names that haven't come on yet. I have to say that Anduin is really interesting to see how he's grown as a character. Now that Rathian is back as well, I wonder if we will see more of that in Shadowlands. Thermoplug, interesting. It will be interesting to see if the gnomes will return to Gnomorgan. I don't think so, but it hasn't. Maybe next expansions. You know, that would be an interesting thing to get those things back. Ash said, favorite story, Wrath of the Lich King. It was crafted so well from zone to zone, with the presence of the final villain present everywhere, only to learn that he was guiding the player, making them stronger, only to kill them and raise them as his army. Phenomenal. Dome City Sandman said, Sally Whitemane, no other explanation required. Oh, I do like a little bit of Sally Whitemane. I think she's cool. Ash continues, least favorite, Illidan. He still can't move on from his unrequited love of Tyrande. He is his scars, which is a terrible way to live. It's spiteful and lacking of growth and healing, which is directly opposite of what someone should do. So there you have it. That's a lot of opinions about the lore characters. It will be interesting to see where these characters go in Shadowlands and any future expansions. But yeah. It's interesting to see how you guys really do feel or get invested in these characters. And let's hope we don't get another Garrosh, because he seems the least favorite to a lot of people. So yeah, no more Garrosh. Okay, that's it guys. It's a very long show. I think we're almost reaching 2 hours now, so I won't keep you up any longer with whatever it is that you're doing. Where can you reach the show? Of course, you can go to whispersofwar.podbean.com or follow us on the Discord channel, dragonpoweredstudio.com/Discord, where there's lots of games to play, discussions, and free games that you can get as well. We always get notified of that. Twitter @whispers_of_war for all the discussions, or my personal one, which is McMonkeys with a Z. The email that you can reach me on is whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com, and twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs. And that's it, people. Have a lovely week. Stay safe. And I'll be back next week, and I think we'll have a round table planned then. It's a little bit controversial. So I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.